analysis. So I'm going to be talking, and that product is called Horse Riding Tales. So I'm going to be talking about the production life cycle, all the way from sort of conceptualization to how we went through production, and then optimization and user acquisition and all that kind of stuff. So why is it useful? I think hopefully it will, even though there's no sort of cookie cutter method to achieve this kind of these kind of metrics, even for us to use, but hopefully there may be parts of it that may be applicable to your own projects. So that's what I'm hoping, that you might be able to take certain parts of this presentation back to certain projects. And for us, I mean, it's opened up a lot of new opportunities over the last few months, such as doing movie crossovers with big budget studios and things like that, which we didn't have those opportunities a few months ago. So I just want to talk about sort of our journey through that process. Okay, so my background isn't actually in games, it's more so in engineering. I'm just going to extend my... So my background is in aerospace engineering, where I graduated from the University of Adelaide, and I spent 7 years working at Defence, doing missile analysis, various threat modeling sort of tasks, which was really interesting, especially with the applications. So what I did there day to day didn't really transfer, to my sort of game dev career. So my previous talks at Defence were a lot like threat briefs. So we didn't do so I'm really excited to be talking with you guys today. It's my first sort of talk in the game development industry. I transitioned when I founded Foxy Games back in 2017, so I'm looking after sort of the company growth sort of role, as well as the sort of head of product management, which is the kind of hat that I'm wearing today giving this talk. Okay, so we work on original IP games. We've had about 180% growth over the last 12 months. We're at about 22 FTE at the moment. We have the offices down in the corner there, if you guys have been around there. So we have about 18 people working here on site, and then some remote contractors in Australia and also around the world. So my sort of philosophy behind the games we build is to build bigger and better games each and every year. So we're going to be talking a lot about horses, but before we get into that, I wanted to showcase one of our upcoming titles called Dino Tamers, which is a mobile sort of online casual RPG game. So in this game, you can play as a male or female character and pretty much go around and tame dinosaurs. So we're excited about the launch of this over the coming month or so. Okay, so I'll be mainly talking about our title, Horse Riding Tales. So how did this concept come about? About 2 years ago, we launched an online wild horse, an online wild horse simulator. It was called Horse Paradise, where you can play around as, a wild horse, make friends online, and that kind of thing. It was a pretty simple, online game, targeted at kids, basically. But one of the sort of feedback that we got from our players was, why can't we ride the horse, basically? And we were like, yeah, well, that seems like a really simple feature we can just add into this game, or maybe we can, take this concept. It seems like there's a pretty big market demand for it, and then turn it into, a whole new production, with higher production value, take all the lessons we've learned from Horse Paradise and put it into this new game. So that was the approach that we took. So in July, we hit 1.2 million monthly active users for this game, and this talk is pretty much about our journey towards that. Okay, so the Agile development process for this game. So we started off with a GDD, like most titles, but it was a really, really rough GDD. So it had some of the sort of basic core loops. It had maybe some of the core features that the game might have, but it certainly wasn't really, it wasn't really a guide to how this product would really take shape. So how I sort of see the game development process is like a massive forest that you walk into, and then you kind of try and find the path to this final product that you're going to create. You might take a few steps to the left and try a few things, and then, some things might work out, some things might not, until you're eventually, this path kind of appears in front of you, and then this is the direction that we're going with this game. So in terms of generating ideas and shaping the product, because we all work on 100% original IP, it was really up to the product teams, a lot of them are actually sitting over there, to come up with different ideas and play test, see how they go. Is this the kind of the direction that we want to go in this game, until we find that sort of path. We spent about 5 FTE for about 8 months to release the MVP title for this game. So the MVP stands for minimum viable product. So we don't necessarily go out and try and develop the product with all the bells and whistles from the start. We try and cut down the product to the bare minimum proof of concept that we can release on the app stores, get some feedback, and then add all those additional features down the track. Because if the product turns out to be really good, then we can spend that time and money investing in that product. If not, then we'll probably cut it and try something else. So it's just a proof of concept that we were going for initially. Something to help us going through this forest that I talked about is the customer avatar. So what is a customer avatar? This person here, this girl is one of our top fans on Facebook. So what we did was we took a picture of her, or the picture she had as a profile, and then assigned her a personality. It may not be her real personality, but we think this is the sort of our ideal customer who we're building the game for. So why is this important? It helps us focus our design decisions. We imagine this customer avatar standing in the room, and every time we think about, oh well, should we do this or should we do this? What would this person say about this decision? So really, instead of thinking about your market segment as a whole bunch of different people, if you condense it down to one person, it can help focus your decisions, that we've found. One insight that this process offered us is that we're not really building games for kids. This audience is on the cusp of adulthood, and they're looking for something a bit more sophisticated. They're looking for maybe a complex economy, a lot of different mechanics which tie in together. So it's important. It was important for us that we weren't building a kids game necessarily, but something a little more sophisticated. So if you've ever played the game, the basic core loop goes something like this. You find new horses in the wild, you tame them, you collect resources, which is kind of like a grinding mechanic, being a mobile game, and you use those to craft items, and you apply those items to your horse and enter them in championships, and then you tame new horses and go through that loop, getting newer horses, better championships, better items, and so on. So it's a fairly simple core loop, at least for the MVP stage. Okay, so one thing we also realized was the horses were the feature, the sort of main selling point of this game. So we wanted to make sure we got the horse models and animations correct, because our success was probably going to be very much dependent on those. So I'm just going to play some of our. If it works, yep. Play some of the animations that we got made for this game. So on the left you got the horse, and then the rider avatar, and then you'll see her climb on the horse and do stuff. So these were all mobile optimized, very low poly, but I think they still look really good. I was especially happy with all the animations, maybe except one which will come up. So that last one's meant to be the horse going to sleep, but we all thought it looks like it's dying. There's also some more concept art from the game, the stables where you can put your horse in and look after them. And then on the right you have like a higher tier epic stable. So at the bottom there you've got a comparison between the concept art and the final model. Then we have some concept art for the eventing arenas, something a bit more contemporary on the left, and then a higher tier fantasy one as well. So I'm just showing concept art at the moment because going into the programming side of things would probably be a whole talk that maybe one of our developers could do if they wanted. But I'll just go over some of the art that we got built up. Okay, so we released in December 2018. We went straight to production on Google Play. We didn't do any soft launch, which may have been a little risky, but I think it was fine in the end because we had a pretty solid understanding that our audience was really looking forward to this game. We received about 2,000 organic installs on day one, and there was overall sort of positive reception. Every time we release a game at Foxy, there's a buzz in the studio when you walk in on the next day with people playing the sort of YouTube playbacks that have happened overnight, and seeing, because they're online games, you can actually see the people playing the game and interacting with the mechanics you were probably testing or building yesterday. So it's always a lot of fun. I've just linked to a gameplay video so I can show you a little bit more from the game. With the sound. So yeah, there's a customer sort of creation screen and a fairly simple tutorial. So this is the basic navigation, third-person view. This is the horse taming mechanic. And you have some eventing. So this is all in the tutorial, so we're really guiding the player's hand through every part of the process. You have some resource collecting and crafting items, and then we have like narrative story points throughout the major points of the game, just to glue everything together as well. I'll just show you the character riding the horse. I can find that. Can't seem to find it, but that's all right. She can ride a horse too. All right. So I'm going to get into the traffic funnel now. So this is my concept of how we get users into the game, all the way from traffic, where they're finding out about the game, all the way through to the store listing, then installing the game, possibly becoming engaged players, and then if they like it enough, becoming buyers as well. But it's important to remember that through the user's journey through the funnel, there's going to be larger drop-offs at each point. And it's sort of our job to optimize the drop-offs based on a number of different things. Okay, so firstly getting into the traffic sources. Okay, so we have organic traffic and paid traffic. So organic traffic is anything like App Store search, where people can look up certain keywords on the app stores, and your app will come up if it ranks highly enough. These are based on metrics like retention, the sort of rating on the App Store, your in-store conversion rates, your crash rates, and all that kind of stuff. So basically the App Store tries to showcase what it thinks the best performing apps are going to be at the top of the listings, because that's going to be good for the app stores and for the best developers. So this is essentially free traffic, the organic traffic. Paid traffic, on the other hand, is basically ads served through Google or Facebook ads and so on. And they can also show up at different placements like your Facebook newsfeed or App Store search. You might get like a sponsored App Store result when you type in a certain keyword. That's paid advertising through Google Play. The general principle behind paid advertising is that different products compete for placements. So for example, if you have a few different horse games competing for a placement on someone's Facebook newsfeed, who's going to, which product is going to win that placement is dependent on what bid they place. And that bid can be, a cost per install bid, or it can be a cost per action. There's different types of bid depending on the platform and the goal. But as a general rule, the higher your bid, the more likely you're going to win that placement. So the more you can afford to bid, the more traffic you can get through paid advertising. So in this case, because Horse Haven, this example of just numbers which don't mean anything, Horse Haven has the highest bid, so they have the highest likelihood of winning that placement. So the question is, how can we increase our bids? Well, we can increase our bids, but that also means that our profit margin is going to be down if our ads are profitable at all. So the idea is, how can we increase our bids while maintaining your profit margin? So these are some of the ad creatives that we're using at the moment for different platforms across Google and Facebook. You can see there's not a huge amount of diversity there. It's mainly gameplay footage, which is okay, but in the future I would like to also get some other types of creatives as well, maybe less focused on gameplay footage, but like other concepts which can work. The good thing about the ad platforms is they use machine learning prediction algorithms to serve the best creative to the user most likely to engage with that creative. So all we do is provide inputs to the algorithm, and then it crunches the numbers and hopefully delivers the optimal result. So we just have to provide, a lot of different creatives, and then iterate on them, see what's depending on what's working. I'm going to get into LTV curves. So what this defines is, okay, so an average paying user's spending habits over a period of time. So if you have an average paying user installing the game on day 0, I can't share the values on the left, but say they're $10 maximum, they might spend half of that amount here, and then by day 15 or 20 they've doubled that spend, but in the next 5 to 10 days they're not really spending a lot more on average. So that's what these curves represent. It's the spending profile over time of an average user. So what we use this curve for is mainly to understand how much we're able to bid for an ad placement, because the more we can bid, the higher our paid ad traffic is going to be, which is going to help us a lot. Okay, so we've talked about traffic sources, and now we're into the store listing. So this is where a user is, on the App Store. They can see, the store listing for our game, and how can we convert more of those people into installers. So I think the first screenshot that a user sees is probably going to be the most crucial, because that's going to define whether they keep scrolling through the listing. If the first screenshot doesn't impress them, there's a good chance they're going to churn out of the App Store entirely. So yeah, we really have to grab their attention with that first screenshot. So that's, I think, the most important thing to optimize. And luckily, Google Play makes it really easy to do like A/B tests, live experiments on these screenshots. So for example, what we do is we come up with a hypothesis and then use the Google Play console to test that hypothesis. So for example, we did a first screenshot test with the copy Ride With Your Friends versus #1 horse riding game on mobile. And the second one actually won by up to 5%. So then we iterated on that. We used the #1 horse riding game on mobile screenshot and compared it to an entirely different concept showing like a more premium horse, and that one actually won by up to 7%. So the next iteration, which we haven't done, might be to use that newest concept screenshot with the tagline #1 horse riding game on mobile. We haven't done that, but that's probably the next sort of thing we'll do here, because these are really easy changes you can make to your App Store listing, which will make big differences across the board when you have a scale of downloads. Okay, so we've talked about installers, so now we're looking at how can we convert more installers into engaged players and buyers. So social media. This is one way we use to sort of communicate with our audience. What we're trying to communicate is that we're actively developing this game. We're very invested in it. So there's going to be a lot of new content coming up. We can communicate our product roadmap with them. We ask them we encourage them to produce fan art, and we share that fan art on our social media pages. We do polls of what features they might like to see next, or what outfits they like most for their character, and then use that sort of for the next iteration of our design. And another thing that becomes apparent with social media is because we want these users to come on the journey with us, not just for this game, but other games as well that we're going to be producing and releasing for a similar audience. So we want to make sure that we bring them along on that journey and kind of look after the community as much as we can, especially if there's like major problems with a purchase that didn't go through, or where they didn't receive their items and we took their money. Then we want to make sure that we rectify that as soon as possible, and just try and maintain a really good relationship with them. Okay, so one thing that became apparent with our core loop, based on player feedback, is there is quite a lot of resource collection in the game, and that's one of our major monetization mechanics. So we couldn't just necessarily get rid of it, but it got us thinking, could we add other things in the game which it won't replace that aspect, but it might give the player more things to do. So the direction we went with this is maybe we can create social mechanics, allowing the player, they can already play online and make friends and stuff, but maybe we can do like multiplayer races and online race courses and things like that. So the system that we came up with was a race course, which changes week to week, and there's more agency. The player can sort of compete for the best time on global leaderboards, and the best 10 or best 30 players get a special item, a special reward, and that leaderboard resets every week. The course resets every week, so it keeps players coming back into the game, and trying something different. So that's how the racing system worked. We also implemented more social mechanics called social quests, which I'm not going to go into because they're really complicated, but they are also something that the users are engaging with quite well. So what did this all do? Did this make a difference to our LTV? So this was the LTV curves for our paying users for our MVP product. And then since we added all the social mechanics and some other mechanics as well, we can see there's definitely an increase. So interestingly, on day 0, an average paying user between the two versions, forget the mouse, isn't actually spending really any different between the two versions, and that's probably because they're just getting into the game, learning what's there. They're not really understanding the full sort of capabilities of this game. But by day 10 or day 20, they've probably spent 25 or 20% more, because there's sort of more content and more things to engage with in the game. Okay, so starting at the store listing, this is a bit of a summary. So we started improving the conversion rate of our store listing viewers to installers. Then we converted more installers to engaged players and buyers by taking on the players' feedback. And then because we improved our buyer rates, we're actually able to bid more for our advertising placements, which increases our paid traffic. And then increases in paid traffic also pay off in terms of organic traffic, because your download velocities go up. Google Play App Store recognizes that and ranks you higher for those keywords. So it's like a chicken and the egg situation where you sort of try and tackle both ends. So going back to the bidding example, now we may be able to bid a little bit more, maybe 20% more, and win more placements. So using this strategy, we've been able to, I think, serve over 30 million advertising impressions since the start of the game, since the release of the game. So that's been quite effective for us. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's how we reached 1 million monthly active users. We've done some other things in the back end as well, which I haven't gone into. There's been a lot of bugs that we fixed as well. But yeah, the more glamorous stuff that we've done is more what I've covered here. So it's I think a really good achievement in terms of what's coming up next. We're building features that let players unleash their creativity, generate sort of content creatively. So that'll be coming up in a couple of months. So I guess the key takeaways from the presentation would be to sort of know your ideal customer, design for them, only them, forget about everyone else. Your key customer is really the only one that matters. Integrate with analytics platforms so you understand the performance of your app, so you can check your buyer rates, you can see where people are dropping off in your tutorial, all that kind of thing. And there may be easy ways you can also optimize your traffic funnel. Like, it doesn't have to be very complicated. Even just changing the order of your screenshots or adding a little bit of detail to your screenshots can make a big difference for very little effort. And look for trends in player feedback as well, whether it's through Google reviews or any other channel that you have for player feedback. You don't want to necessarily take on all of your players' feedback because they'll be asking for you to make everything for free in the game. But you want to see if there's any sort of opportunities you can take that might benefit the player and you as well. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, great talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
On that previous slide, we had your sorry, the one before that. Just after it starts dropping down, there's that big spike. Do you know what that was?
I think partly it was some of the changes that we made in terms of everything I talked about in the traffic funnel, and partly it was also a random change in Google Play's algorithms, which drove a lot more organic traffic. So we don't really know what causes those changes or what ranking factors might have changed. So I think it was partly due to the changes that we made and partly due to luck. Yeah. Yes.
How did you manage to identify how to optimize your bids?
Just going back to the bids. So as a general principle, the more you can bid, the more likely you are to rank for placements. The more advertising you get, your product can serve. Do you mean
compared to others? So
right,
how did you get an idea of what they were bidding?
We don't know.
Figure out how to bid yourself.
Yeah, we have no idea what others are bidding. Certain keywords and certain categories are more competitive than others, and the ad platforms can give you a bit of an idea of what the competitiveness is, and how much you should be sort of bidding to rank on number one search results. So that's a reasonable guide that we can use, and that number is based on how many competitor products there are and what they're bidding. But in terms of individual other apps, I have no idea what they're bidding. Yeah, it's just a example, but yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, Oscar.
So I've forgotten the name. Those curves.
LTV curves.
LTV
yes.
curves. So sorry, just a little clarification. Is that how much a player was on average spending per day, or that total spend?
It's cumulative.
Cumulative.
Yes.
As far as sort of player retention, sort of the return on investment on getting those players past the 25 days, did you find that the cumulative spend kind of capped where that 25 days is? Apart from, I suppose, that I guess Wales, but apart from that, do you find that after the 25 days the spend stays?
I think after 25 to 30 days it levels out on average, except for those really, really small amount of very engaged players who keep on spending as we release new content. But yeah, it does it definitely does plateau after a while. But I think the sort of newer version has a slightly steeper incline than the previous version. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously it's a free-to-play game.
It's a free-to-play
correct?
game, yes.
So one thing you didn't really touch on is, did you adjust the actual prices or microtransactions that you
Mhm.
had in-game after release? So sort of, did you see like that some tiers weren't being used at all, so you lowered them? Like, did you adjust those prices much once the
We
game was out?
we didn't, and it's probably something that we should A/B test going forward. We sort of used the industry standard benchmarks of the general pricing tiers, and we found that to be working okay. Where the highest, the most expensive product was delivering the most revenue, which is kind of what you expect. So in terms of optimizing it, one thing we're going to be looking at doing is varying the prices based on the country and doing A/B tests that way. So in various geographies, you can try like sub-dollar pricing, and for example, in Brazil, where we're getting quite a lot of downloads but very little in-app purchases, we might want to consider doing more ad monetization and reducing the pricing, or to a flat $1 or something. Yeah. Yeah.
How many customer support people do you have working in your team then? Because obviously, like you mentioned, in regards to keeping your audience engaged, a big part of that is issues people have.
Yes.
And so that can take up a huge amount of time. So how big is your customer support?
We just have one person at the moment. Contractor, yeah. He's doing a really good job though.
How do you find with like different languages that you're trying to keep?
So we haven't actually localized the title at all. It's something that we'll probably do in the future, especially to German, because about half of the player base is from Germany. I think they speak English pretty well, but there may be portions of that segment which could benefit from localization. It's not something we've looked at for this title. We've done it in the past, and it hasn't made like a huge difference. But it's something we should look at for sure. Yeah, it does add a lot of cost and complexity to the game, though.
Were you able to understand why so many of your market was in Germany?
It's a good question. I don't actually know. Yeah, I guess they really love horses. But yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I should look into it. Yeah.
So where did the original idea come about? Because you had the first game before this one about horse riding. Like,
Yeah.
where did that idea come from? Was it just an experiment and you just happened to find the audience there and that was something you wanted to follow up?
Yeah, I think it's something that they reacted quite well to, being able to play online together in sort of like a wilderness environment. So we found them reacting well to that, and then started building our audience, and then sort of iterating and figuring out what they would like for our next game, and where we can build on that. So it was just us trying different things. There wasn't any specific strategy, but once we found something that did work, then we sort of tried to build our audience and go from there. Yeah.
And now dinosaurs is the...
Yeah, dinosaurs is the our sort of core social media following is still way more into horses, but yeah, I think there's maybe a bit of a gap in the market for a similar dinosaur game, so that's why we went in that way.
I'm sure all the ARC players when they're not at the PC.
Yeah, when they're not playing Ark.
Is the new dinosaur game like, are you keeping all the fundamentals of the horse game, or is it a completely
I think we started like that, but then it turned into this entirely different beast. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to reuse as much of the frameworks that you have.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the code we're using for the dinosaur game came from a different game, not the horse riding game, which was like a wolf game. But I think at the end it turns into something so different that it may even be better off sometimes starting from scratch and then taking certain parts of the mechanics where they're needed. Yeah. Yeah, Michael.
So I'm going to presume it's mostly all on Apple, but is there any portion of it on another platform, say for example Android?
Yeah.
Or is there any potential it's going to be on like PC or something?
So it is on Apple, Android, and Amazon.
Yeah.
We do have a Steam version as well, but we haven't found that converts too well. It's mainly because of the audience being much older, maybe more male-dominated. They're not as interested. But it's on all the major mobile platforms at the moment.
One final one for me.
It's all right.
In regards to the platforms, which platforms have you found the most success with? It seemed like Google or Android was one you were referring to a lot. And do you have many key partners that you talk to with those platforms? And
Yeah, it's a good question. We have some partners in Google, and sort of the majority of our revenue and downloads is coming from either Google or Apple, and a small percentage in Amazon as well. I would say there's a lot more downloads coming from Google, but they're converting a lot less, whereas on the Apple platform you get sort of lower amount of downloads, but higher value users. So that's the sort of trade-off. So if we're going to do like advertising campaigns, sort of serve ads in the game, it might be more worthwhile doing that on the Google platform compared to Apple. Yeah, that's good.
Just sort of real quick, what sort of programs are you using for your online back-end stuff? Playfab, yeah. It's really good. Yeah. No, because I don't know, we had them in a while ago.
Yeah.
And they did a little presentations like this.
It's definitely really useful. I'd highly recommend it. We also use Photon for our online multiplayer server. Yeah. Anyone else? Awesome. Thanks, guys.